Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we have had so much fun trying out all of the features like Q&As and polls that let us be really creative and engage with our audience. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Welcome to episode 70 of Podcast Royal, where we continue to mourn Her Majesty the Queen. You know, Jessica, we talked a few months ago about how excited we were for our 70th episode, our very own Platinum Jubilee episode, if you will. And this is our 70th episode. And I have to tell you, I could not be less excited about reporting this news if you paid me. How are you today?
You know, I just before we started recording, I posted a story on my personal Instagram. I was having a cup of English breakfast tea and remembering Queen Elizabeth. The past several days I've been following along with, her coffin at Balmoral, and then today, of course, we'll talk about this. They moved it to London, but it's just been, it's been sort of just a sad, couple of days here as we've watched both what, the UK going through their mourning period, and then also in the US, people have been remembering 9/11 over the weekend. So, it's been just kind of a somber past few days. But how about you? How have you been?
Yeah, I mean, you and I just jokingly made a bet offline of the over under of whether I would cry. And look, I have no shame in crying. There's no shame in getting emotional, which obviously I did multiple times on Thursday. But it's a whole lot. Like it hurts to read those words, not out loud, but when you are reading these words out loud, they have such a gravity to them. And reading, like when I read that she died peacefully at Balmoral, it had just happened that we recorded that just hours after she died. And to answer your original question, I am doing okay. It's just all so sad. And the thing is that it's not, and nor should it be, the type of situation where it happens and it's over within a couple of days. This is a woman that deserves every minute of this mourning period. But this is a mourning period. She passed away on September 8th. The mourning period will extend until September 26th. So this is a long haul, and you've got to pace yourself. And, there's been a lot of high emotions. We're going to try to cover everything in this episode of what's happened from Thursday to today, which, just to timestamp this episode, we're recording on Tuesday evening, as we always do, even though our episodes come out on Wednesdays. So it's a long haul journey. And I read an article, my mom sent me an article, that the Queen's death is triggering for so many people, very few of whom obviously knew her personally, but it reminds us all of losing a grandmother, and
I thought that same thing. It does. And while it's been sad, it's also been, I don't know what the right word is, but I've smiled several times as I've seen footage of her throughout the years with family and Prince Philip, and old photos, and it's been, I've enjoyed seeing those, and so I totally understand where you're coming from, and I agree. And I may have mentioned this last week, but you just can tell how widely she was loved across the world. So many people from so many countries beyond, England and the United Kingdom have really just shown an outpouring of love and respect for her, which is, just a testament to the person that she was.
Oh, absolutely. And listeners, please take care of yourselves. Jessica and I are reporting on this, but we also realize that many of you are very invested in this story. And this is a long haul journey. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So please take care of yourselves, take care of yourselves emotionally. Some of you have reached out on our DMs. We're happy to receive those. We're certainly not licensed professional counselors, but we're definitely happy to share in the emotions of the moment with you. But let's all take care of ourselves and realize that crying is okay, mourning is okay, feeling sad is okay, feeling triggered is okay. But let's take care of ourselves through this process. And I know, I mean, that's what it feels like to me. It feels like I've lost my third grandmother. And it's bringing up a lot of feelings. It just so happened to be that my grandmother, my own grandmother, my beloved grandmother, passed away almost 10 years exactly from when the Queen did. And so it's that was already circulating in listener long time, or I guess not long time, but if you've been listening for more than a couple episodes, you know that I had a pretty major loss in my family this summer. And so it's just kind of it's just a lot of grief. It's a lot of grief. And so I just hope everyone is doing okay. And if you're not, that's okay too. But just please give yourself the attention that you deserve. And Jessica and I had always planned to return from our summer break today, which is September 13th, for the episode to come back September 14th. Obviously, we never in a million years thought that we would be reporting on this news. I mean, I think we were planning on having a really fun episode 70,
Mhm.
and this is not fun. And we normally open each show for new listeners with something called What We're Into, where we share something, usually a non-royal something that we're into. We also then go into Jessica's fashion pick of the week, but in light of the circumstances, we're going to bypass both of those segments, as well as obviously our lifestyle segment, which we usually do at the end of the show, or any interviews. It's just going to be us today. And we're going to go straight into the royal rundown, where we will stay most of the time. I think we have a really small royals around the world, but first, Jessica, I'd love it if you this segment, it was not really a segment. This part is not at all meant to be braggadocious, but we want you to check out our work. So will you tell our listeners where we've been in the media these past few days?
Yeah. So we actually, Rachel and I, was it on Friday, Rachel? I think it
It
was.
was
We
Friday. All the days are blurring together. It was Friday. Actually, it was Friday right when Charles was making his first speech. So who knows
Yes.
how many people were watching us, but it was Friday around lunchtime.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to report live on Cheddar News. We talked about the Queen's time on the throne when she took the throne. We talked about her fashion through the years, her relationship with Prince Philip, and just how loved she was by so many people around the world. We were on for about 10 minutes or so, 5 or 10 minutes maybe,
Mhm.
reporting on the Queen, and it was a great experience for Rachel and I. Obviously, a sad reason to be on reporting, but we wanted to just share that on here for our listeners. So, if we have any screenshots from that, maybe we'll post them on our Instagram.
Yeah.
But it was a new opportunity for both of us together,
Yeah.
anyway. To report, you've done before, and you have more to share. But for both of us to go on together, it was new.
And so appreciated. I would rather be with you 100,000 times than be by myself. That's my favorite. I want you to be with me every appearance henceforth. But I also had the opportunity to be on CNN's New Day, which is their morning show on Friday. I've got some upcoming stuff with BBC and MSNBC coming. Again, like I'm saying these things, and I feel like I'm talking about someone else. CNN actually, thankfully and unbelievably, asked me back for a couple times this week, but I had to turn them down because I have a full-time job and I'm covering the funeral and all kinds of things for Marie Claire. And so I was actually at a friend's house last night, and CNN called. This is Monday night, and I had to say no. And she was like, "Who are you?" Like standing in my living room, turning down CNN. And I said, "I know this is a strange life, but I'm not a huge TV appearances person. I think I told someone this week I'd rather do 10,000 podcasts than one TV appearance. You have to go through hair, makeup, all the things, but um I'm also covering the just the Operation London Bridge, for lack of a better term, and the funeral for Marie Claire. I am the weekend editor there, for listeners that didn't know that. So please check out our coverage there. And also, I have, I guess, a bit of levity in this sad time. So speaking of Marie Claire, I actually had the opportunity to interview none other than Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, for Marie Claire. That article was actually going to come out September 6th, but we were waiting on something. And then, of course, the Queen passed away. And so we won't be publishing the article until after the mourning period is over. So it'll probably dip into October. But just the fact that I was able to speak to the Duchess of York, and then was able to, after the Queen died, pass along my personal condolences to her, is just, again, I'm living someone else's life. But we're saying this again, not to be braggadocious, but just to tell you that you can find us out in media reporting, sharing our opinions. And obviously, this will always be our primary vehicle to share our opinions about the Royals. Podcast Royal will be, but check us out other places too. And it was really cool to be able to be there with you, Jessica. Again, I would rather have you there than ever be alone. So
Yeah, and I'll share some insider tips for listeners. If you ever do see us on there, let me tell you, you aren't prepped with questions beforehand. So
are you talking
we're
about
asked,
my literally answering one of the questions with I don't know, so I'm not going to talk about that.
yeah, we had no idea. So we got asked lots of surprise questions and had to stay on our toes, but of course it was fun, and we would definitely do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, let's move into the Royal Rundown, which is going to obviously take up most of this episode. So, I think the logical way to do this is to talk about everything since Thursday first, and then we'll cycle back to what happened over our break, which all kind of seems irrelevant at this point, but we'll get there. But we're going to start with the immediacy of, I guess, King Charles III's reign, which began on Thursday. So we last checked in with you on Thursday evening. And as you know, if you're following this developing story at all, there has been plenty that has occurred since. How many days has it been since Thursday? Like 5, 6, something like that. And it's a whirlwind. So we will try to hit everything that has happened since we last recorded. Our apologies if we inadvertently missed something. There are so many moving parts to Operation London Bridge, but Jessica, doesn't it give you comfort to know that for nearly 60 years, since the 1960s, Her Majesty knew about these plans? She knew that all of this would happen day one, day two, day three, and this is what she wanted. And that gives me comfort. Does that give you any comfort?
Yes, absolutely. I was just thinking about that today. She's known about this, she's had a part in this. And I feel like this is just another kind of thought to how she um, wanted things in her role, and how she thought about other people. We don't know if her personal preference deep down may have been to, not go through all of this. As we know, Prince Philip wanted something small and private, but she knew her role, and she knew how, as we mentioned last week, and she said she needed to be seen to be believed. I've seen that quoted several times, and we mentioned that on
Mm-hmm.
Cheddar News. But she knew how important it would be, as the queen, and to all of the people who loved her and wanted to mourn alongside with the royal family. And so she knew all of this and had a hand in that. And I was just thinking about that this week. How much of it was what she really wanted versus what she knew the people wanted.
Yeah. And I think it's probably a mixture of both. And
I think so.
yeah, so let's back up to the days before Her Majesty's death at Balmoral. So reports are coming out that her final days at her favorite place were quote unquote full of fun, which of course makes me so happy to hear. And work too, of course. On Tuesday, just 48 hours before her death, she appointed new Prime Minister Liz Truss. Apparently, she fell ill so quickly on Thursday that no one was really prepared. I read something today on People. Jenna Bush Hager from the Today Show was in Scotland, I believe, to interview Camilla. And
Mhm.
the night before, on Wednesday night of last week, she had dinner with Prince Charles, who the then Prince Charles, I should say. That's going to take me some time to get used to. I'm gonna slip up a couple times, just saying. But obviously, if anyone on Wednesday night knew that the Queen was ill, if Charles, especially in Scotland, he would not have been with Jenna Bush Hager. No disrespect to Jenna Bush Hager, who is lovely, but so that shows you how quickly this all happened. They were having dinner Wednesday night. It was jolly. It was fun. It was full of laughter. Jenna said, and no one was really prepared for September 8th to be the day. But the Archbishop, excuse me, of Canterbury, who met with Her Majesty in June, said she had no fear of death. I mean, she was 96 years old. She lived a full life. Her partner, Philip, has been gone for 17 months. She I believe was ready whenever the time came, and then
Mhm.
the time came. So for a full recap of what happened on Thursday, please go back to episode 69. I personally cannot stand to repeat all of that again. So let's, if we can, let's start on Friday and pick up there.
Yeah, so in Charles' first address as king on Friday, he officially named William and Kate the Prince and Princess of Wales. William has already expressed his deep affection for Wales, and Wales is actually the first place he and Kate lived together as newlyweds. So they lived in Anglesey from 2011 to 2013. Just after Prince George was born, is when they moved from Wales. And they are actually supposedly already planning a trip to Wales soon. Their office released a comment on their behalf saying that they intend to support the aspirations of the Welsh people and shine a spotlight on the challenges and opportunities in front of them. And William also said that they will seek up to live to they'll seek to live up to the proud contribution that members of the royal family have made in years past.
And then, of course, we remember William, Kate, George, and Charlotte's trip to Wales to Cardiff Castle during the Platinum Jubilee last June. Of course, never knowing then how quickly life would change and how they would be the Prince and Princess of Wales inside of about 3 months. And in his speech, which I really encourage all of you to take a listen to, it's about 10 minutes long. I found it on YouTube. I've been it's weird. I've been reporting on everything as it's been happening, yet it's been going so fast that I haven't been able to watch anything in full and in totality until afterwards. So I think I finally watched Charles's speech from Friday on Sunday in full. But in his speech, Charles, in a major olive branch, expressed his love for Harry and Meghan, which I love to hear. He said that they continue to build their lives overseas. And Harry and Meghan, by the way, are considering flying out Archie and Lily, as they will remain in the UK through not just the funeral, which is September 19th. We'll talk about that, but also the 7-day mourning period after the funeral, which will put them here until, at the very least, September 26th. Unfortunately, I feel like so many major deaths in Harry's life have happened right around his birthday. Of course, Diana died August 31st, just a couple weeks before his 13th birthday back in 1997. But now the Queen has died exactly 1 week prior to Harry's 38th birthday, which is on Thursday, September 15th. Again, it's such unfortunate timing, exactly 1 week after the Queen's death. But again, I still find it to be, if it's a little bit miraculous that Harry and Meghan were in the United Kingdom when this all happened. They came for 1 week's worth of engagements. We'll talk about that in a minute, but obviously never expected to stay nearly the entire month of September. I think they got here on September 3rd, and they'll be here until at minimum September 26th. So they did not bring the children with them for their 1 week of charitable engagements. The children are with Megan's mom Doria in Montecito right now, but I have even written a story and have heard from multiple places that they're probably going to fly the kids out. Whether we'll see them at the funeral, I don't know. The kids are really young. Archie's 3, Lily's just 1, but that's a long time to be away from mom and dad. So I respect whatever decision they make there.
Yeah, that is a long time. Um, we also saw that Charles has officially named Camilla as his queen consort. Listeners will remember Queen Elizabeth actually expressed her support of Camilla as queen consort earlier this year. So we did expect this to happen. In addition, Charles' counselors of state are set to include his wife Camilla and the first four members of the line of succession who are over 21. So that's William, Harry, Andrew, and now Beatrice. This is a new role for her that she'll be stepping into. So we'll.
That's a huge role for Beatrice.
It is,
And
yes.
this is based off of, I think it's the 1937 Regency Act. And so previously the Queen's counselors of state were Philip when he was alive. So the spouse gets a spot. And then, like you just said, the first four members of the line of succession who are over 21. So it used to be Charles, William, Harry, Andrew. And now that Charles is king, Beatrice moves up because she is ninth in the line of succession, but the other members of the family that are pushing her down are George, Charlotte, and Louis, and Archie and Lily, who are obviously all under the age of 9. So this is huge for Beatrice, and I'm really happy for her.
Yeah.
This is a big moment for her, and this is assuming that Charles is going to go with this, which he likely will. I don't know what's going to happen with the Andrew equation yet, or the Harry equation for that matter, but regardless, Beatrice will be there.
Mhm.
So good for her. So okay, let's jump to Saturday. So in a stunning display of unity, and I mean stunning, I was not expecting this. And when I saw this photo, it took my breath away. William and Kate personally asked Harry and Meghan to join them on a walkabout at Windsor Castle, where they greeted mourners and viewed floral displays for the Queen. I want to pause there for a moment because I know that you saw it right
Mhm.
around the time that I did. What were your thoughts when you saw the four of them together?
I was really surprised. I was watching it live on the news. And so I watched the whole event go through. It was just really beautiful seeing the public out there and all of the flowers and everyone so excited to pay their respects and to greet the royals as they came through. But yeah, I was not expecting to see all four of them there at all. I was thinking it would just be William and Kate.
I have to tell you, because some people are saying that it was staged and that it wasn't, they like doesn't mean anything for the reconciliation, whatever, hater, like that, like think what you want. But my hope, of course, as anybody who wants the success of this family and familial bonds to be rekindled here, I mean, I hope that this is the beginning of a new chapter. And I hope that this brings peace. I think somewhere the Queen and Princess Diana as well are very happy with that big move by William and Kate to ask Harry and Meghan to join them. It was, grief is a lot of things. It's brutal, but it is a uniter. It unites us. And whether it's unites us as a world right now or as a country, meaning the UK, or as a family. I hope that I mean, maybe I'm a Pollyanna, but I hope that this is the beginning of mending some fences. And
Well,
go ahead.
I think it really speaks a lot to William and his character. And,
Yeah.
I think he sort of stepped outside of everything that's been going on. At the end of the day, this is his brother, and it's his brother's grandmother. And they need to mourn together and they need to have that time together. And I think he also did it, out of respect for what he thought maybe his grandmother would want, and also his father. He said in his speech that he wants to honor his father as king, and he had just seen his father give this speech where he talked about his love for Harry and Meghan, and
Mhm.
and I think he made that gesture as a brother, and I thought that was incredibly kind of him and Kate.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like Charles threw the pitch with his speech on Friday, and then William knocked it out of the park, I think. And so I say well done you to William and to Kate as well for having them come. Also at the walkabout, we, oh my gosh, like I don't think I'm gonna get emotional. I'm gonna try, y'all. Not that there's anything wrong with getting emotional, but um sweetest story coming from Kate to a mourner at Windsor Castle talking about Prince Louis, who, keep in mind, is only 4 years old. And sometimes young children are the wisest of us all. But apparently, when Louis found out that the queen had died, who of course is his great grandmother, he said, at quote, at least Granny is with great grandpa now. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
4-year old.
I
And
know.
what beautiful words of comfort from sweet Louis, who we all fell in love with over the summer. And just like I'm getting goosebumps saying that. What a sweet, sweet boy. And William released a poignant statement on Saturday about his grandmother. I really encourage you, if you haven't read it, which if you're following this story, I'm sure you have. Came out on Saturday, but please get on this is interesting to say, the Prince and Princess of Wales Instagram, not the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge anymore, the Prince and Princess of Wales Instagram, and read it in full. But he said that while he is grieving, he still feels incredibly grateful to have had her wisdom and reassurance into his 5th decade. Kate, for her part, I mean, logically we know this, but Kate has known the queen for over 20 years. So that's half of her life. She's
Mhm.
been able to be mentored by Her Majesty. And William said of Her Majesty, quote, she was by my side in my happiest moments, and she was by my side during the saddest days of my life, which makes me think of Balmoral and how 25 years ago in 1997, I mean, we just passed Diana's quarter century anniversary. Nearly to the day 25 years ago, William and Harry were there at Balmoral with the Queen when they found out that Diana had died. And now here we are at Balmoral again, and the Queen is gone 25 years almost to the day later. It's unbelievable, the passing of time and how quickly it goes, and also how slow it is sometimes. But my favorite line, perhaps, from William's statement is a note of wisdom from the Queen, who said, grief is the price we pay for love. And isn't that so true? So, do you have any thoughts on William's statement?
Yeah, I mean, I read it also and thought it was incredibly sweet and touching and just really personal, you know? I mean, you just feel the emotions that he's going through and to talk about how, she was the queen, but she was his grandmother too, and she's been
Yeah.
there through all of these moments throughout his life. His wife has had so much time getting to know her as well, and I really, I felt his statement was really really touching. I read it a couple of times, and it's anytime a family member releases something personal like that, I feel like it's just thoughtful of them to kinda share in those moments with the public when they don't
Mhm.
have to. So
Yeah, and we're gonna get to Harry's statement in a second, but I just thought of this. Anne actually just released a statement today, Tuesday,
mhm,
and she said that she was privileged to be with her mother for the final 24 hours of her life, and we'll talk about this in a second. But Anne has not left her mother's side for 1 second. The entire drive, she has been with that coffin the
mhm.
entire time. Like, just, I mean, Anne is really Anne is really moving me throughout this week. She is really really touching my heart. But Harry also released a statement which I thought was beautiful as well. He called his grandmother a guiding compass, and he actually quoted Her Majesty from her holiday address last year when she was speaking about Prince Philip's death, when she said, life of course consists of final partings as well as first meetings, which is beautiful. And he went on to say that she is sorely missed, and he thanked her for her commitment to service, her sound advice, and her infectious smile. And he closed by saying how glad he is that the Queen and Philip are reunited again, both at peace. So, what were your thoughts on Harry's statement?
Yeah, I mean, again, it was another personal note from a grandson about his grandmother, and I thought it was thoughtful of him as well to share that statement, and he quoted her, and his statement was, it's different than Williams, but it was kind of the same sort of sentiment, same kind of feeling as Williams. So I know I think I've read all of them that have come out now, and they're all just really sweet ways of honoring Her Majesty.
You know whose statement I want to read, that if it's out there, I haven't read it, is Sophie's, because Sophie and the
Mm.
Queen were so close. I want to
Yeah,
hear what she has to say.
I don't know if she, has released anything officially. I haven't seen anything from her or really any of the others outside of the immediate family, but, well, I mean, and I guess she would consider her immediate family too,
Yeah.
but I do recall her being really choked up and upset when Prince Philip passed away, so,
Mhm.
I imagine this has been really difficult for her as well.
Yeah. And, you can find Harry's statement, they don't have social media yet anyway. I mean, Megan said in the cut that she was getting back on social media. We'll talk about that later, kind of, but you can find Harry's statement on the Archewell website. And many are asking, and as of today, Archie and Lily are still listed on the royal family's website as Master and Miss. That is likely by Harry and Meghan's choice. Harry and Meghan are not using HRH styles for themselves, so it's very doubtful that Archie and Lily will either. And so a lot of people want to make much ado about this, but I don't think that it's anything other than Harry and Meghan's choice. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of debates back and forth too over protocol and, how the rules work. And, I think that's going to be something that none of us are really get fully able to understand or really know how it will look. So we'll wait and see if it changes. I sort of imagine since they've updated the website and it's stayed the same, I sort of imagine they probably won't change to HRH.
Well, and just for those that might not know, so the reason why, and like I don't really want to get into the depths of this because it's complicated, but the reason why Archie and Lily were not born with Prince and Princess titles or HRH is because, I mean, we could get really into the weeds here, but the 1917 letters patent says that all grandchildren of the monarch are entitled to HRH styling and Prince and Princess titles. Well, when they were born, they were the great grandchildren of the monarch, right? And so that means that all 8 of the queen's grandchildren have the opportunity at least to be HRH and Prince and Princess. Anne's children, Peter and Zara, that was Anne's choice. They don't have HRH or titles. And then Edward and Sophie's kids, I don't know if Louise and James have HRH, but they are Lady Louise and Viscount Severn. So, but anyway, now that Charles is the monarch, that means that all of his grandchildren are entitled to HRH stylings and Prince and Princess. But again, like I just said, I think it's Harry and Meghan's choice to not do that. Another thing I wanted to point out is people say, well, why did the Cambridge kids get HRH and Prince and Princess and they were the great grandkids? Well, that's because the Queen made a special rule because they are the children of an heir to the throne, William. Did I explain that? Well, that
You
was
did.
off
We
the
we
cuff.
talked
Okay.
about that on a previous episode. I think it was sometime after the Oprah interview came out when all of that was kind of in question and people were wondering about that. And we explained it and you did a great recap. That's exactly what we talked about is they were great grandchildren of the
Mhm.
current monarch. So it didn't
Mhm.
apply to them. And it looks like now they'll probably just stay master and miss. So
Yeah. So there's that.
so on Sunday, September 11th, the Queen's coffin departed Balmoral around 10 a.m. And it arrived to Edinburgh at 4 p.m. local time. It was draped in the Royal Standard of Scotland. It spent the night at the Palace of Holyrood House before leaving for London today. And I've watched, the footage of that, and it's been very moving and really beautiful.
Yeah.
Um,
And I want to share just really quickly about Sunday. I mean, you've probably watched more on television than I have. I actually have not even turned the TV on once. What I'm watching is like I said, like I'm way behind everything. And that's probably by design because it is very triggering. And, I'm just trying to protect myself over here and do the marathon, not a sprint. But an incredibly touching moment from Sunday was Anne curtsied just about as deep as a person can curtsy to her mother. As I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it. And Anne has really always been such a bedrock in this family, such a cornerstone, and she is that this week for sure. And I don't know if Anne would accept my hug, but I would love to hug Princess Anne right now because she is so strong and it's in such deep mourning.
Well, she has this sense of duty just like her mother, and she has incredible respect for the role that her mother, has held. And we've seen that. And there was a lot of wondering the past few days about whether or not she was with her, mom before she passed. And I'm glad that we, did hear from her that she spent those last 24 hours by her side. And as you said, she's remained by her side as the coffin has traveled around the UK. But I saw that curtsy too. It was a really moving photo to see
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
So on Monday, September 12th, mourning took place in the Scottish capital of Edinburgh for Her Majesty. There was a service of Thanksgiving at St. Giles Cathedral, and I watched that as well. King Charles, Camilla, Princess Anne, Timothy Lawrence, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, and Sophie were all in attendance there. And the service was really beautiful. There was several passages from scripture read. They said the Lord's Prayer. We just I watched the full ceremony. All of her children walked behind her coffin in Edinburgh Monday. I saw them leave St. Giles Cathedral, and I thought it was a beautiful service.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it yet. I will get there, but I'm woefully behind. And on Monday evening, I find this so interesting. So speaking of Anne, she made some history yesterday on Monday. Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward conducted what's called the Vigil of the Princes as their mother's coffin laid in state at St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh, as we've mentioned. The four siblings stepped out beside their mother's casket, which still was draped in the royal standard of Scotland. It was on top of it was a floral wreath and the crown of Scotland. And Anne made history as the first woman to take part in this tradition. Of course, it's called the Vigil of the Princes, but she is a princess, obviously. But it's only taken place in Britain two other times when King George V died in 1936, and then again when the Queen Mother died in 2002. And I should mention again that Anne is just so steadfast. She's been on every leg of this journey and with probably no end in sight.
So today, which is September 13th, the day we're recording, the Queen's coffin traveled by plane to London. It arrived to Buckingham Palace this evening, and Her Majesty will be lying in state at Westminster Abbey, or Westminster Hall,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Wednesday, September 14th, the day that this episode airs. And of course, when she arrived tonight at Buckingham Palace, I believe the whole the royal family was there to greet her. So of course it was the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate, Charles and Camilla were there, Harry and Meghan were there. Of course, we know Princess Anne traveled from Scotland to London with the coffin. And then, of course, the next 4 days until Sunday, September 18th, mourners can pay their respects where she'll be lying in state in Westminster Hall.
So Charles and Camilla are doing a bit of a tour of the United Kingdom right now. They were in Ireland today, Tuesday, to greet mourners. Camilla, when asked, I believe she's actually getting a compliment from a mourner. She said the mourner said to Camilla, "You're doing a great job," and Camilla said, "We're doing our best." Which what else can you do when you're in this moment of grief?
And I saw
So
that story on Instagram today. The girl that shared it in Ireland, actually, we've talked about her before, but I follow her on Instagram, and she was there with a group, and they went out and they were able to shake hands with Charles and Camilla, and I saw them speaking to them on stories, so that was fun.
wow. You'll have to tell me what account that is. That I want to check that out. So Her Majesty is lying in state. She will be lying in state. Her funeral, or through the weekend, excuse me, her funeral is set for Monday, September 19th at 11 a.m. at Westminster Abbey in London. And then after the public service, there will be a private service for her family, and Her Majesty's body will be laid to rest in the King George IV Memorial Chapel, where Her Majesty's parents are already buried and where the ashes of her sister, Princess Margaret, are kept. Of course, if you know anything about royal family history, that family of four Queen Elizabeth's parents and her sister and her were incredibly close, and they will all be laid to rest together. And not long after that, of course, Philip will join her there as well. So random Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth fact that I guess I didn't realize this, or I'd forgotten it, that they had honeymooned at Balmoral. I don't know if I knew that. And of course, we've said this on the show multiple times that Balmoral was one of her favorite places on earth. So there's some color commentary for your dinner party, that's where they honeymooned. And,
Yeah, I don't know if I knew that either, actually. I don't know. I may have heard it at some point, but I didn't remember that.
yeah.
So we also learned that Andrew and Fergie will inherit the Queen's two corgis. And it was actually Andrew and Fergie who originally gave them to her, so that makes sense. And you just mentioned their honeymoon, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip and Balmoral. So here's another fun fact. She took her first corgi, Susan, on their honeymoon with them.
Oh,
She, of course, everyone knows loves corgis, and she loved Susan, and so she brought Susan along to Balmoral on her honeymoon. But when Her Majesty passed, she actually had four dogs. So she had two corgis, Mick and Sandy, a dorgie named Candy, and a cocker spaniel named Lissy. So we've talked about, of course, all of the corgis before on the pod, and she's had dozens over the years. But I saw online the BBC actually created an illustration of her corgi family tree
wow.
with all the dogs' names and who everyone descended from. And honestly, it was quite impressive, and of course, a little comical too to see all the dogs listed out there. But
Y'all, we are working overtime this week in the royal reporting world. I didn't, obviously I had nothing to do with the Corgi family tree, but I did write a story. So I have an interesting tidbit for you that nobody asked for. So when the Queen was ill in October of 2021, so I don't think we thought she was going to pass away, but when she started to kind of become frail, the Independent, as in like the Independent in the UK, asked little old me to do a 6-story run for them, only with these stories only to be published after Her Majesty's death. And one of the stories that they commissioned was what happens to the corgis now. And I wrote that story probably close to a year ago. And I've seen that story that I wrote. I was like, God, I hope I got it right, because I've seen that aggregated all over the place. So people really care about these corgis. But yeah, we are writing about everything over here, because people, they're such a part of her identity, and I'm glad to know that they will be in safe and loving hands. I know that they'll be taken good care of.
Well, one other thing I wanted to mention per listener request. So we had a listener reach out and ask us on one of our Instagram posts, how is Angela Kelly? And
That's a good question.
yes, and of course, listeners, you probably know Angela Kelly is a very close personal assistant to Her Majesty and has worked with her for several years. But it was reported, so I believe she had she had moved in to Windsor in May, and was moved into a suite next to the Queen. So she was living there, and it was reported this week that she will be allowed to continue to live at her current residence at Windsor Castle.
Mm.
Um, and I think I read that Queen Elizabeth actually granted her permission to do that before her death. They had worked out that detail. But they were incredibly close. Angela Kelly was also part of the bubble of staff who were authorized to live in close quarters with Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out and everyone was having to quarantine, and you couldn't really venture outside of your little bubble. So we know that she'll be staying there. I haven't really heard any reporting on you know how she's been the past few days or what specific activity she's been involved in. But it was really nice to know that the Queen and her had talked about this and that she's being allowed to continue living at Windsor Castle.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, because they were best friends. I mean, she was the Queen's dresser. She was the Queen's dresser, but she was also her best friend.
Right. It was more than a professional relationship. It had really turned into a friendship. So
I feel like, so Angela Kelly had a book that came out, I think in 2019 or 2020. I got it for my mom for Christmas a couple years ago. But I think she has I mean, at least she did. I'm not sure if it's still going to happen, but it's either a second book that's just come out or it's about to come out. So I wonder if
Yeah,
this will delay any of that. You know anything?
I don't I haven't heard about any delays. I believe I read it was a series of 3 books, and I think the
Mhm.
2 of them are out, and there's one more that will be coming out soon. So, I mean, listeners, if you're curious about, Angela Kelly and her experience working with the Queen, there's maybe books you wanna check out.
Yeah, and I should mention that all of those books were approved by the Queen. It's not like she's writing these like tell-all behind her. I mean, obviously, like they were very much like if not commissioned, I don't think they were commissioned by the Queen, but very much okayed by the Queen. So that's a good question. Another question that keeps coming up are, oh my gosh, this is such a moot point, y'all. We cannot stay on points like this, but the uniforms. So the uniforms keeps coming up. Buckingham Palace announced Monday that only working members of the royal family who hold military rank will wear uniforms to the Queen's memorial events. So that means we'll see Charles, Anne, Edward, and William in uniform. As for Andrew, who, of course, if you know anything about him, he does hold military rank. He is also not a working member of the royal family anymore. We have seen him in mourning dress heretofore, but a special exception has been made for him to wear a military uniform to the final vigil on September 19th, the family vigil, as a sign of respect for the Queen. Harry will be in, who obviously is had a 10-year career in the military, but again is not a working member of the royal family anymore. He will be in mourning dress and no uniform. And he has expressed his wish to keep the attention off of this and on his grandmother, which we're not really helping out with right now.
Mhm.
But I know many of you are wondering, and it's our job to bring you the facts as we know them. So a spokesperson for Harry said, quote, his decade of military service is not determined by the uniform he wears, and we respectfully ask that focus remain on the life and legacy of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, end quote. So another thing I just thought of is, God, what about this book? Like, this is kind of a rhetorical question, but like, what about this memoir? I don't know. Well, I don't know. I don't have any. I mean, the memoir is due by the end of the year. It's already kind of been signed, sealed, and delivered, but I don't know what happens now. Do you have any thoughts?
No, I've thought the same thing. I don't know about the book. As far as the uniform, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we take the focus off of that. I was reading a lot of stuff online about, people having different opinions or talking about what it means to wear a military uniform and everything. And I saw some interesting points. Again, Queen Elizabeth, she planned out her whole funeral years and years in advance. So, everything is going how it's supposed to go. We don't need to be going back and forth about, the uniform. And also for American listeners, I didn't know this, but someone mentioned online, actually, several people in the UK, it's not customary for veterans to wear their uniform. So if you have previously served in the military, in the US, you may see a veteran, in uniform, but in the UK, it's usually only kind of like, I guess, active duty or people currently serving. And
Mm.
if I got that wrong, I apologize. Somebody in the UK let me know, but I read that from several people online today when I was reading all the updates about the statement that was released. So I just wanted to kind of point that out.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so that takes us through, I guess, part one of the Royal Rundown. So that takes us from Thursday, which we already covered in episode 69, up to Tuesday evening. Of course, in our next episode, we will pick up where we left off, including the funeral, but that takes us to the present moment as we are recording. So now we're going to kind of move into part two of the Royal Rundown, which is the fact that we've been on vacation for, gosh, our last recording was August 9th. And our last episode was August 10th with James Patterson. That was a great interview. Please go back and listen to that if you want some lightheartedness. But
Yeah, we had a lot of listens on that interview. People really
yeah,
enjoyed that episode, and I really liked hearing from him.
yeah. So we're going to move now into all other news that we haven't covered while we were on break from August 10th to September 8th. It kind of seems a little bit irrelevant, but we do still want to cover the high points. And we are going to table some stuff. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty of a lot of things, but I'm going to kick it off to you to start. I would have said the Cambridges, no more, the Waleses, William, Kate, and the kids.
Yeah, okay, before we jump into that, I thought it would be a weird transition, but so far I haven't had an issue with it. When I hear Prince and Princess of Wales, I'm thinking William and Catherine, and I haven't had a problem referring to them as that. And I think that they are the right couple to inherit those titles, and I think that they will do a great job in that role. So I know for a lot of people it feels kind of weird, and I totally get that. But I don't know. I guess I've been kind of expecting that to happen at some point, and I think it's very fitting that Charles went ahead and gave them those titles. So,
Mhm.
but we
Can I
did
say
talk.
something about that really quickly? Sorry to
Yeah,
cut
for
you off.
sure.
It's just, it's so wild because, of course, Diana and Charles were the Prince and Princess of Wales so
Of course.
famously. And then when they got a divorce, and then, of course, she died so soon after that, um, Camilla is technically, I mean, she was not anymore, but she was technically the Princess of Wales. Of course, she never used that title publicly because Diana was so closely associated with it. She instead went by the Duchess of Cornwall title, but we
Mhm.
really haven't had a public, in the headlines, Prince and Princess of Wales for over 25 years. And so it harkens back. I think it's pretty cool that, that the Princess of Wales was William's mother and now it's William's wife. And I'm not having trouble calling them the Prince and Princess of Wales, but I always called the three kids the Cambridge kids, and now it's the Wales
Yeah,
kids. So
yeah, that would be
it's
a
just
little bit
different. But anyway,
harder.
I digress. Okay, go ahead.
So we talked about this before our summer break. We were expecting William and Catherine to move into Adelaide Cottage, and they actually did while we were on break. So Adelaide Cottage is in Windsor, just a stone's throw from Windsor Castle. But we're kind of thinking it won't be too much of a surprise if we hear that they're moving again at some point soon into Windsor Castle. Now that Her Majesty has passed, that is available for them to transition into there if they decide to do that. So we'll look out and see what happens
Can
there.
I just jump in here really quickly and tell you
Mhm.
about the month of September that George, Charlotte, and Louis have had? My God.
Oh my
So
goodness.
they get back from Balmoral. They move into Adelaide Cottage. They go to preview day at their new school on September 7th. They go to you're about to talk about this, their first day of school on September 8th. Their great grandmother dies. Now they have a new last name. You're going to say this in a second, but I just think this fact is so wild that they started school on a Thursday with one surname and then come back to school on a Friday with a different one. It's not funny, but it's just
It's a lot of change. It's a
the
lot of
weird
change.
world of yes, the weird world of royals that we live in. So I think to your point about are they going to move? Yeah, I mean, I think eventually they will, but I heard William say he was quoted by one of the more, I mean, they're talking a million, not millions, but tons of mourners right now. And one of them said William told him or her, I can't remember, that they're just trying to keep it as normal as possible for the kids right now. And nothing is normal about this. They're grieving a loss as well. But I think
Well,
it might be a minute before we see them move again because they just moved like a week or two ago.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I would expect, I mean, look, they're great parents. They know how to handle these situations, and I would expect him and Catherine both to be trying to keep things as normal and calm for the children as possible. And so, and there's really no rush for them to have to jump into a new residence. I think, if they want to take a year or so and kind of get settled into their new neighborhood, and then kind of figure out what they want to do, I think that makes complete sense. But
Mhm.
like you just said, George, Charlotte, and Louis, they have started school. All three are together for the first time at Lambrook School. And so their first day was September 8th. And as you just mentioned, they went in as the Cambridge kids. And the second day, September 9th, they came back as the Wales kids. So
That's
maybe,
not funny. It's just so weirdly royal, like
maybe
it's
we'll,
just strange.
probably not confusing for them, probably more confusing for their school friends, I would say.
Are you going to
Um,
come back on Monday with a different last? Just the weirdness of everything, of the whole situation. But
well, at least they didn't have to come back as the Cambridge Cornwalls. And
oh
then
yeah, 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 yeah. That's true.
so,
What if they? Oh my gosh! What if they'd done the Cambridges, the Cornwalls, and then the Wales? It's just like the revolving door of people that don't have. I mean, I guess Mountbatten Windsor is the firm surname, but they will go by William and Harry went by William and Harry Wales in school. So I would assume that George, Charlotte, and Louis will as well.
Well, everyone looked, super happy on Wednesday the 7th, which was their preview day before they started school. We saw the whole family there. We had Catherine and William walking all three kids up to meet their, I think it was their headmaster at the school, and we got some great photos from that. Of course, we didn't get official first day photos on Thursday because of the Queen's passing, but I'm excited for them to all be at school together. And I think Windsor will be a great new place for their family. And I think this fall we'll try to plan some lifestyle content, maybe around their new place.
Yeah, I did some reporting on Lambrook and it sounds like a really, really cool place and just like beautiful countryside, just idyllic place for the kids to be. So Kate was scheduled to have a tennis date with Roger Federer this month for charity. That likely won't happen, at least not in September. Again, every Royals calendar is booked through at least September 26th now and probably beyond that as well. Same with William. He was due to be in New York City on September 21st for the Earthshot Prize Innovation Summit. But since, of course, that falls in the 7-day mourning period after the Queen's funeral on September 19th, that likely won't happen either. But as far as I know, everybody's still all hands on deck, ready to go for Boston in December for Earthshot. So, all right, let's move into Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan are gonna, especially Meghan, is going to get. I had some thoughts, but we're not going to do that in this episode out of respect. Harry and Meghan were probably the most out front and in the spotlight during our break. The first 3 episodes of Meghan's Spotify podcast Archetypes have aired, but Meghan, and I think this is absolutely the right decision. There should have been an episode today, September 13th, but the show is paused as well as any scheduled TV appearances. I think she was going to go on the Tonight Show. She's paused all of that for the Queen's death, which I think is absolutely the right move. As we have mentioned copious amounts of times, Harry and Meghan were already in the UK when the Queen died. They were on a mini tour of sorts that started on Monday, September 5th in Manchester at the One Young World Summit. While there, Meghan, who is stunning in red, by the way, gave a keynote address in her first UK appearance since she and Harry's step back in 2020. The next day, the 6th of September, they flew off to Dusseldorf, Germany for the Invictus Games 1 year to go kickoff event. I'm not sure what they did on the 7th, but they were due at the Well Child Awards in London on September 8th, but obviously canceled. And Harry went to Balmoral and Meghan stayed behind in Windsor. Meghan, while we were on break, also appeared on a controversial cover of The Cut, which debuted on Monday, August 29th. It honestly seems disrespectful to go into this now. So we are going to table this until October, but don't worry, we'll be back with thoughts because we have them. So, but not now. Doesn't feel right. Also, while we were on break, Harry made a surprise trip to Africa and some other news rounding out the second part of the royal rundown.
Yeah, it was also announced while we were on our break that Lady Louise, who is the daughter of Prince Edward and Sophie, Countess of Wessex, is headed to college, and she's going to the University of St. Andrews, which is in Scotland. And listeners, I'm sure you know this is where William and Catherine both went to school. It's where they met and they fell in love. And they both have a fondness for St. Andrews and Scotland. Lots of great memories there. And Lady Louise is planning to study English. So, I mean, she has really just kind of grown up
Mhm.
quickly these last few years. I can't believe she's already headed off to college.
I can't believe that either. And speaking of a college aged William and Kate, The Crown has cast its college aged William and Kate. They're all newcomers, or at least they are to me. Meg Bellamy will play Kate. If you go just Google Meg Bellamy to see what she looks like, and especially William, they do look like their real life counterparts. William will be played by multiple actors as his character ages. First, Rufus Campa, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that, and then Ed McVeigh. And finally, Diana's charities received a huge payout to the tune of $1.6 million from the BBC as a part of the fallout from the BBC Panorama interview in 1995 with Martin Bashir. Centrepoint, the English National Ballet, Great Ormond Street Hospital Children's Charity, the Leprosy Mission, National AIDS Trust, the Royal Marsden Cancer Charity and the Diana Award will split the $1.6 million equally, the BBC said. So we have a very brief Royals Around the World segment to close us out. So go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to mention this. Following the passing of Queen Elizabeth, Queen Margaret, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce her name. I'm going to say Queen Margaret II of Denmark is now the only reigning queen in Europe. And this year is actually a jubilee year for her. So she is marking 50 years on the throne. She's 82 years old, and apparently she's very well liked among the public. I'm not super familiar with the Denmark royal family. We may have mentioned them a few times on the
They've been
podcast.
on here a couple times. Yeah.
Um, but I thought that was really interesting to note this week. And she actually, it's a should be a time of celebration for her, but she sent a sympathy message to King Charles this week saying that Queen Elizabeth was a towering figure among the European monarchs and a great inspiration to us all. We shall miss her terribly. And she also went so far as to scale back some of her own Jubilee celebrations this week out of respect for Queen Elizabeth and the UK's mourning period. So just
Wow.
another testament to the relationships Queen Elizabeth built over the years and the respect people across the world have for her.
That is another very class act right there. And new listeners, you should know that our main coverage area is the British royal family, but if we find a news item that interests us, we also like to cover other royal families around the world, including Denmark. We really like Sweden, Monaco, Japan. We go all over the world. So stick with us for the best. I think, I mean, I'm biased, but British royal family coverage and definitely the best Royals Around the World coverage. So plug there for the show. Okay, wow. So we just covered about 5 weeks in hopefully like roughly an hour. So anything else for the good of the order before we wrap up episode 70, which is like the antithesis of what we hoped our Platinum Jubilee episode would be, but life is life. So anything else for the good of the order?
No, we're of course glad to be back, although, sad to be reporting on this news this week, but we do have, for our new listeners, welcome, and we've got some fun content planned for this fall. So stay tuned and connect with us, if you have questions for us, if you have something you'd like us to share on the podcast, whether that's your thoughts on something or you want us to answer a question, definitely send it our way. I would love to read some more. I know we mentioned Angela Kelly from a listener this week, but if you've got anything else, send us a DM or an email, and we'll talk about it on the show.
Yeah, and I wanted to wish a happy early birthday to Harry, whose birthday is Thursday the 15th. And I mean, it's just going to be a bad birthday, let's face it. But hopefully there will be some levity and some joy to be found. And actually, I don't know when we're doing our next episode, if we're going to do it back to back weeks or if we're going to skip a week. We haven't talked about that yet, but my birthday is in the next couple of weeks as well. So from one September baby to another Harry, happy birthday. I'm sure you are taking the time to listen right now in the midst of your crazy season right now, but we love, and like I mean this very sincerely, we deeply care about the entire family, and we know how much this loss hurts us. So the family remains top of mind. We can't imagine, and we are keeping the entire British royal family in our prayers, and we mean that very sincerely. So listeners, please don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Jessica kills it on Instagram. I'm so bad. I sometimes come in and like do some DMs, but Jessica's driving that ship and doing a great job. We are at Podcast Royal. Email us at hellopodcastroyal@gmail.com. And please follow, rate, and review the show. 5 stars would be a great birthday present. We remain in deep mourning. I know you all are as well. We are on this journey together. Thank you for tuning in to episode 70 of Podcast Royal. We'll be back with episode 71, which will include all of the funeral details and everything, really rounding out the rest of Operation London Bridge. So please continue to take care of yourselves. And we want to say yet again, rest in peace, Your Majesty.